AJG! That's why they fired me. I can't speak English. Right. We are going to look at Complexity versus Space Station. As you can see, both teams went 3-1. Solid performances from them. And they went and played each other in the quarterfinals. Another Game 7. But yeah, went to overtime in Game 7. 3 minutes of overtime. Jeez, let's have a little watch of this. So, lots of 1-goal games here. I'm going to watch these last 2 games. Okay, let's have a look at the stats. Daniel, high on points as always. Lots of goals. Slightly more shots from Space Station, but nothing too big. Complexity actually conceding like 1.5 goals, 1.29. Quite a low scoring game for these two teams, I would say. Yeah, nothing crazy standing out. Daniel, really high average amount. You know, we spoke about high average amounts and pop-off players. Daniel, another example of good boost management. Complexity, jeez. Look at these average amounts. Do you reckon they're just not going? Like, everyone in this lobby's average amount's very high. Arsenal quite low, but then he's probably going for a lot of bumps. Arsenal in front of the ball a lot, going for those bumps, most forward. AJG, most forward, makes sense. I saw his saves were quite low and he scored a lot of goals, so that makes a lot of sense. Movement. Yeah, it's quite slow. Jeez, the lobby's really quite slow. Quite grounded as well, like very grounded. Interesting. Let's have a little watch of the gameplay then. So let's watch the first game for a bit and get a gist of it. Nice little play from LJ. So we've spoken about it in the past. The general structure for Space Station is LJ is aggressively first-person-y. Daniel tends to be at the back cleaning up after teammates' moves. And then will come in and do his thing. And then Arsenal tends to be going for bumps. Like you see right there, Arsenal just went for a bump on AJG. So Arsenal tends to rotate out opposite side and go for those bumps. If we have a look above, Arsenal intercepts in the middle. He's going to look to probably rotate out through across the middle. Get those pads. Daniel with a bit of an opportunity there. AJG! I've never seen a player do this before. I don't think I've ever seen that before. Getting a little bit too close there by AJG. Ooh, I don't like this. It's worked out though. I really don't like this rotation to get the 100 there. Like after this, I feel like just be rotating back. It doesn't need the boost. That boost is never going to get taken, so it just takes him out of the play. I mean, I understand what the concept of switching between ball cam and not ball cam, but to do it that fast, like, you can't even see anything. Right? Like, you just, like, lower the switch rate. Like, most of the time, it was switching between the middle of them, you know? Okay, so why did this goal go in? What happened here? Nice play from Raiseball. Talk about creativity. You see, like, the difference already just watching this game versus the previous one. Like, within the first minute and a half, we've seen a creative play. We've seen a few mechanical creative plays, right? Like, AJG here. Forces a tough save out of Arsenal. Raiseball. Very creative, right? Yeah, it could be a habit, the ball cam spam. It could be warming up the fingers, sort of like how people spam backwards cam. I sometimes spam boost. We just move on. Take a sip and move on. Right now, Complexity are looking very good. Good stuff here in the corner. Nice finish. AJG, good 50-50. Forces LJ to pass the teammate. Really nice stuff. Very creative here from LJ. So look, this is prime Space Station right here. Right? Let's just go above. Let's look at this structure right now. Arsenal bumping keeper. LJ aggressively moving onto the ball. Daniel coming in to clean up, right? Prime Space Station. Let's watch that from Daniel's point of view. Alright. Daniel chilling at the back. Arsenal gets bumped. LJ's patient. Lovely stuff. So yeah, we can already see the creativity here from these two teams is much higher than that of the NRG Optic series, but there is definitely a lack of control at times. It's a little bit more chaotic. So it's like the last series chaos, this series creativity. Oh no, last series control, this series chaos. Last series lack of creativity, this series creativity. It tends to be a scale. And right now the top teams have got a combination of the two where it's controlled chaos, where they're making it feel chaotic for the opponent, but then for themselves it feels in control. And AJG is doing this a lot. Like the man is spamming ball cam. Stop spamming ball cam, AJG. You'll be able to see where you're going. The situations what he's doing this in is fine. Which he's doing this in is fine, right? That's why they fired me. I can't speak English. Situations which he's doing this in is fine because look, here sees forward, here sees up, right? It's fine to do it, right? Ball, Arsenal. Obviously, with the way spectator goes, you get the full sweep, but because he's doing it so fast, he gets caught halfway between. So he just needs to spam it a little less vigorously, and I think he'll get a little bit less disoriented because every time he spammed it, he's just looked a little bit disoriented. I don't know if that's just me feeling disoriented from watching it, but you know that's not why they fired you. Stumpy, if you'd enlighten me. I still don't know. Okay. Yeah, it feels like everyone's got kind of sussed out Space Station. Like when they first played, they looked so good at the beginning of the season. It feels like everyone's kind of just worked out what their game plan is, so they know what to expect because they have such distinct play styles, each of them. I feel like we need to see... Yeah, I think we need to see Arsenal be a bit more creative. Oh, that's not good, is it? We need to see Arsenal be a bit more creative on the ball, and LJ be a bit more willing to just do the rotation out bumps, and then Daniel to just not feel like he has to turn everything into a goal, you know? Like a little bit more just breaking people down. Because right now it feels like he's trying to score whenever he's breaking people down, whereas maybe a little bit more like, oh, let me just do the touch that will break him down. Because like there, right? This is what we're talking about, right? Daniel has just gone for a deadly touch, recovered fast. Stayed in the play, recovering well. Right? Slow cheat from SSG, we like it. Sealing pinch CRR, very nice. Yeah, right now I'm seeing some issues with AJG's positioning. He gets a bit too close to the play. So right here, a bit too close to the play again. I don't get it. It's a good play there by him. Good ideas. Just don't understand why he keeps spamming. Yeah, so AJG is too static. We looked at the stats. He's not got very good movement stats. And he sits too statically in the middle of the pitch. And it's like there's a lack of control because of the fact he sits so middly. Yeah. This is something we saw a bit out of Kaio on Furia. They play a very similar role of like just chilling with low momentum. It does mean that when they go for the ball, they just don't have many options. Yeah, there's just this AJG style I just don't really like. I feel like it just slows down their rotation because his recovery speed is going to be so much longer. He gets beaten to the ball a lot. That one was alright. Oh, so close. But you see like here, right? This is AJG's weakness, is he gets very close to the play statically. So it's just, there's not a huge amount of options he's got available when he's that close. You use up a lot more boost. longer recovery speed and all that kind of stuff. So AJG needs to work on rotating away to come back in with a bit more momentum. And we saw it in the stats as well, like very slow speed stats. Actually, while we're at it, yeah, one of the slowest players. Ajax has always been quite slow, and it's always been a bit of an issue for him at times. But yeah, like AJG is quite slow, and in terms of boost, he doesn't get many small pads, and normally the slower players are small pad players. So if we look at like Torment, right? Lots of small pads, not so many big pads, right? But yeah, there's an archetype of slow player like Torment who stay in the play, very rarely going super fast. Most of the time they're hovering at slow speed, but they just accumulate boost by picking up pads. And when you think about it, it makes sense, right? If you're going slower, you don't need to boost as much. You need to sort of like move around the middle of the pitch and pick up pads. But yeah, the main thing is when you see a player like AJG who play AJG's style that we're watching, they need to be more pad reliant. You see like right here, AJG is 100 boost reliant. And like having a slower moving player is fine. But yeah, they need to be more of a pad merchant. Yeah, you see like here, right? Like he doesn't need that 100 right there. And actually he's boost starved CRR in a way. Right? That back 100 wasn't there. If we go up to here, right now, CRR wants to go across to get this 100 right here. And while AJG filters in via the pads or something into this position, right? So basically AJG goes, look, I've got 60 to 70-ish right now. I've filled up on pads. I'll come in into a good position. You go get that 100, right? And that's why having your slower moving player be a pad merchant is so key. Because now they've kind of boost starved themselves. And like, I'm sure we could find other examples of this, right? Look, AJG's... So he goes here. He's picking up pads. He'd have about 70 odd here. Does that make sense to you guys? And then because of that, look, CRR is now going for this ball and he doesn't really have much boost. And it throws off the whole team's boost rotation. Right? And now CRR is just never able to go get 100. Gets that 100 now. AJG is on no boost now because he's reliant on the 100s, right? Shot there. If AJG is a pads player, looks at, I mean, he went for the bump there to be fair. But if AJG is a pads player, he can then rotate through the midfield, pick up pads, and then fill in the gaps. CRR can come in. But then he felt like he needs to go get 100, right? But this is what we mean, right? AJG shouldn't think about 100s in this situation. He should just be thinking about pads. Right? His job here is to push up and support CRR, right? And it just leaves a massive void in the middle of the pitch. And like you can see that really well if we go into this position, right? So CRR at this point, so CRR's going forward with the ball here. He wants AJG to move up with him via the pads here. Raise ball gets this 100 if it's there, and then rotates back in that way. If it's not there, then that's bad boost management, blah, 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 I don't know. Like, raise ball should be then coming in behind. If he can't get that one, he has to go via pads and be a bit more efficient. But yeah, like, raise ball will be coming in at third, AJG pushed up at second. But instead, what happens is AJG takes himself out of the play. So then, AJG goes over here to get that 100 that's not even there to come back in. So that leaves all of this area here uncovered. And this is what the pad player should be thinking about doing. And the way AJG is playing, he's like on the edge of this sort of mindset. Where he's like, he's doing the pad bit, but then not doing the pad bit, right? Like he did the pad bit and then he rotated out to get 100. Pad merchant would be a fun tile, wouldn't it? Like right here. But then like, look, he's going to need to rotate by the 100. That was fine to get the 100 there, but like he shouldn't be going down to 0 as much as he is. Like if he's moving slower and he's picking up lots of pads, he needs to be playing in a paddy position a bit more. Oh, this is a whiff from CRR. Just misread from CRR. That was quite a long game. Let's Let's scroll down to the final game and have a little watch of that. So yeah, that's the main thing I would say right now. Complexity, they're lacking the full coverage of the pitch, which is not, like, they're mechanically creative. They're very good on the ball. They're creating lots of chances, but they're leaving big gaps on the pitch. And I think a lot of it comes down to this need of 100s. So they rotate away from the play, giving up a lot of room. Whatever AJG has got going on with his ball cam there, I'm not a big fan of. As for Space Station looks solid. I'm not blaming AJG, by the way. I think it's just like the way they're structured right now. It seems like that's the way they want to play. Which is fine. It's a way of playing the game right now, of having a pad player who plays a bit slower, who's there in the middle, cutting things off, looking to support the team. And like Torment did it super well for V1. Kaio did it for Furia. Fairy Peak did it for Vitality back when Vitality were in their peak. You know, like it's been a strategy in Rocket League for a long time to have a player who's more pad reliant. But right now the whole team relies on 100, and the only player that to me makes sense to be the pad player is AJG. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the ball cam switching. As for SSG, like, you know, they're playing a solid game plan. They just lack multiple game plans, right? Like, they're a little bit predictable in the way they play. Like, Arsenal is always going to go for a bump. LJ is always going to turn and go. Daniel's always going to play passive and wait for the opportunity to go for a solo play, you know? Like, they feel very predictable. Something I haven't revisited in a while, but I think it still applies. It was something a theory I created like 5 years ago. I called it the left-right theory. The left-right theory, let's get into this position, right? When you are on one side of the pitch, the play is either left-sided or right-sided, right? So right now, let's just say like the midline of the play is like somewhere around here, right? So it's like the midline of the play, you know, like if we were to draw a box around this play, like all the players are encompassed in this box, and that's sort of like the midline of the play. Make sense? So right now, from blue team's perspective, this is a left-sided play. So what that means is that the players on the orange team are going to be focused on that side of the pitch, right? So LJ right now is focused this way. Daniel right now is focused this way. Arsenal right now is focused this way. Where is the hardest place on the pitch for a player to access? Like, if you were to hit the ball at a player, where on the pitch is the hardest place for them to access? It's often 90 degrees of where they are, right? Behind them / like 90 degrees to behind them, right? So for LJ right here, if we drew a line through them like this, everything over here is going to be hard for them to deal with. Same thing with Arsenal, right? And this is why you cover behind your teammates when they're pushing up, is because you can cover the stuff that they can't cover. So right now for Daniel, like it's sort of like this area here, and then like he'll be able to turn pretty well to other stuff. So in that case, the danger area right now for orange team is over here. But then getting the ball over to this area takes a bit of time. But when you switch sides, if you switch up the side of the play, you go from left to right, this is where you can really break teams down. Because if you switch sides a lot, it will make them get out of position, right? Because let's just imagine right now, if blue team sends this ball over to the opposite side of the pitch, how are the players all going to react? They're going to have to restructure, right? We'd have to see, you know, Daniel would go forward to this ball. Then LJ would rotate in. Arsenal would rotate back in. What happens if you swing it back? Then the players would have to intercept it, and so on and so on, right? So switching up the side of play is a very effective way to break teams down, and it requires you to be spread out as a team. Like right now, CRR needs to rotate out here to come back in and provide that opposite side of the pitch play, which is why that opposite side of the pitch rotation is so dangerous that people do, where they, you know, they follow through the goalkeeper and then rotate in like this, right? It's because it's so dangerous to have a player on this opposite side of the pitch. And this is a concept I created way back in the day, and it was why I believed infield passes were so dangerous back when they were dangerous. It's also why the backboard is so dangerous, because if you send it towards the backboard at this angle, it's going to bounce back down towards the opposite side of the pitch where much harder for the opponents to cover. So that's why backboard passing and infield passing are so dangerous, and you're using that open space. And then another advantage of using open space is the recovery speed of the person passing is a lot longer, so it gives you the time to hit it into that space and then rotate out. Now, a lot of this comes down to the way you present yourself to the ball, right? So like right now, AJG is going to struggle to get this to the opposite side because of the way he presents himself here, right? Because he's limited his ability to send it to the opposite side of the pitch by getting around this ball. But if he just jumped up and clanged that to the opposite side of the pitch, then he could have done it, right? So the reason why I bring that up is because to me, SSG aren't using the width of the pitch that well and switching the side of play that much. Not in a way that's fast and aggressive anyway. See, look, there's an example of it right there, right? Arsenal's on the opposite side of the pitch. This one came from Raiseball's defensive touch. At this point, complexity, you see AJG's movement in the net? This is the kind of movement that you're trying to get out of it. And look at the blind spot. I didn't even mention this. It's a blind spot, right? That's another big reason why it works. I actually mentioned that when I first went through broke it down. It's a blind spot for the defense. For CRR in this situation, it wasn't a blind spot because he's rotating in that way. Still kind of was, but yeah, they're able to deal with it. But you see how that looks for the defense when the ball's getting switched up side by side. And K-Corp did this really well at Worlds. This is one of their greatest strengths as a team, is they mix up the side of play a lot. Oh, great save again. Some amazing saves in this game. Do you see how mixing up the side of play, how well it worked here? It just lacked a little bit of the zing, right? LJ managed to use a bit of mechanics to make it happen. But imagine if LJ had used a slightly more pingy cross-field approach, right? Like, it's a good pass, like, don't get me wrong, great mechanics, Arsenal could have scored, etc, etc. But, like, the way they're setting themselves up, that was very much like an afterthought, right? Like, Arsenal could have sunk that, okay, fair enough. But, like, that's a tiny, narrow window for Arsenal to shoot. Whereas, if like we said, LJ sets himself up in a way to ping it across the opposite side of the pitch, right? Like, I don't know. Like, it's still a good pass. It's still a good option, but it looks like an afterthought, less so than a let's try and mix up the angle approach. Look, perfect. Right here, right? LJ's touch here. Mix up the side of play. Perfect. But then the way they deal with it is not... That's not the right way to deal with it, right? You've got so much time on the opposite side of the pitch. Right? Daniel, great position here. Gets really narrow to the play. Needs to just take his time with that, right? So, like, they're not using the width very well. Fair play. AJG defends against it well. Like, this is really good from AJG. But it's very much like solo plays with Arsenal bump. Solo plays with Arsenal bump. They need to be able to come up with more options. Like, it was a good option taken. Like, they're taking good options, but they need more variety of options. They need to rely on some other things. Otherwise, it's only going to work when the rotation lines up so that Arsenal's forward. Yeah. The reason why the switch up of angle works well is because you're, like you said, you're backwards relative to the ball. See, like, again, right here. Like, imagine here instead, LJ takes up a bit more time, right? Just hovers a little bit. Waits. Booms it across at Arsenal, right? But because they're getting to the ball so soon, their rhythm and choice is always the same. It's always like, how am I going to take this forward towards the opponent and score a goal? How am I going to take this forward towards the opponent and score a goal? How am I going to use my set of tools that I have forward towards the opponent and score a goal? Whereas changing up that pace, like right here, LJ, just a bit more patient. Cross that across, boom, goal scoring opportunity. Like, that might not have been the right one to do it on, right? There's loads of other opportunities to do it. But my point is That's the kind of thing they should be looking to do. Yeah, everything is very send it forward, let's try and score. Send it forward, let's try and score. The same could be said for complexity, to be fair, as well. Like, both teams are very Route 1 at the moment. Was this a counter-attack? I think it was, right? So this is a positional overcommit from Raiseball. We've spoken about this a little bit. This kind of sitting a bit too far forward is a positional overcommit. CRR mess up the play. As we've mentioned, Complexity's boost management is an area of improvement. Look at the boost up above me. As a team right now, they're struggling a little bit with boost. AJG, like if we go back, AJG, reliant on 100s, needs to be the pad monster of the team, right? So it's an overcommit here from Complexity that led to the goal. But like what I want to do, like I said, is just get into general gameplay and see how narrow it is, right? Let's just go back to a random moment. We'll just see how narrow the gameplay is, right? See Complexity all on top of each other. And like, you see how LJ rotated out there? Like LJ was on the opposite side of the pitch and then came back in on the same side of the pitch. Very narrow, right? Daniel, very narrow. Like they're all on the same side of the pitch. Like it's super congested and narrow gameplay. AJG was opposite side and is now very much back in the narrow. So they're just going in very narrow channels and they're not using the full width of the pitch that well. There are times where they get onto the opposite side of the pitch, but then they choose to get narrow. Like right now, LJ's on the opposite side of the pitch. Comes back in. But then like they choose to rotate the same side and get very narrow. Like CRR's opposite side of the pitch. Chooses to come narrow, right? So like there's loads of times where players are on the opposite side of the pitch and they're just not utilizing it. Like right here, AJG opposite side of the pitch comes in, bit of threat. And like that was a good goal scoring opportunity, right? AJG rotates out, opposite side, CRR 50-50s it with him. This is where that opposite side of the pitch power play comes in. The structure for SSG is not quite there. Another good 50-50. No one's able to react to that except Raiseball, right? You see that? So you see how this little passage here comes from an opposite side of the pitch usage. Right? 50-50, rotate out opposite side. Doesn't actually need the 100 there. Good 50-50. Defensive structure gets thrown off. Like that was a goal scoring opportunity. I think Raiseball had the shot opportunity. Daniel makes a great save, right? So you see how the switch up of sides can create deadly moments? So that's what we're talking about. Right,